For a time, if you were a hardcore wrestling fan, NXT was the place to be. In a sea of Vince McMahon nonsense, NXT was the portal for so many in the US to learn about different companies in and outside of the country. A super indie inside of the biggest wrestling company in the world, hearing about a 5-star classic just felt like another night at Full Sail. While the promotion has seen its fair share of growing pains, the former Black and Gold brand has given us some true all-timers. Braun Breaker, Roxana Perez, and Carmelo Hayes are laying the groundwork for the future version of NXT. So let's take a look back and see why these 3 letters mean so much to so many people. Also, this is a fan requested video, so shout out to Fardeen on Instagram. This is Extreme League Wrestling, and here are our top 10 NXT matches. Number 10, the North American Championship ladder match, TakeOver New Orleans. The first match to start off probably one of the best takeovers of all time. This inaugural ladder match really did show the depth of the NXT roster back in the Black and Gold days. Of course, minus the redacted Dream and the homophobe. Of course, all 6 men play the greatest hits of any good ladder match, insane high spots, inhuman athleticism, and EC3 getting his narrative rocked. I could spend this entire video going over every insane spot, but I'm no commentator, and this is a YouTube video. The right man won in the end, making this a really big night for the Undisputed Era. Wrestling doesn't always have to be a meticulous mental and physical war between multiple opponents. Sometimes you just need a few brave souls to see the ladder section in Lowe's Hardware as a challenge. Number 9, Pete Dunne vs. Walter for the NXT UK title, NXT TakeOver New York. Speaking of Lowe's, did you ever slap the bags of topsoil as your parents walked through the garden section? Now imagine instead of a bag of topsoil, it was someone's chest. That is in a nutshell what Pete Dunne vs. Walter is. At this point, the NXT UK brand was still working to get off of the ground, and it was built on the back of Pete Dunne's 600-day plus title reign. I guess you could say the Bruiserweight is a bit of a trendsetter, huh, Roman? All was going fine for this seemingly unbeatable champion until Walter shows up. And yes, his name does need to be in all caps. Because whether you knew him as Walter or Gunther, this man lives his life in all caps. It's not very often that you see the champion as the underdog, but Dunne goes beat for beat with Walter here. It would be easy for these men to have a car crash crazy match. But there's truly so much strategy going into this match, and both men communicate that gloriously. Strategy tends to be a hard thing to communicate unless a heel is outrightly cheating or manipulating an injured opponent. Amazingly though, these 2 men go against that booking crutch and end up having a pretty straight down the middle match. Walter was 100% the right choice to dethrone Dunne's historic title reign here. Both men put on a bout that gave this UK title the reputation that matches the look. God, this belt is beautiful. Number 8, Aleister Black vs. Andrade Cien Almas, NXT TakeOver New Orleans. When it comes to this era of NXT, the names that come up first are Johnny Wrestling and Tommaso Ciampa, and for good reason. Underneath this blood feud that took over the top of the card, the NXT title scene had a sleeper feud of the year on its hands brewing between Black and Andrade. This is personally one of my favorite feuds in NXT history just because of each man's work rate. This match starts out extremely hot, with Andrade leaving the tranquilo at the door. Mauro puts it in fantastic words, saying that both men are treating each other like Twitter troglodytes. A 20-minute match without a rest hold in sight. These 2 really do highlight the work rate that would light up message boards at the time. Zelina Vega's role in this match shouldn't be understated either, adding a very interesting element to keep you on your toes as she tries to help Andrade keep the NXT title. She is truthfully just as important to Andrade as the man himself. Aleister Black uses the pair's tactics against themselves to pick up the NXT title here. While I'm sure he doesn't watch the channel, let me yell this into the void to see if he can hear me. TK, buddy, you have both of these men on your payroll. Why don't you put them together? I will give you all my spicy tattoo money! Number 7, the Revival vs. DIY 2 out of 3 Falls match for the NXT Tag Team titles, TakeOver Toronto. Through a modern lens, this match feels like a different universe compared to where all 4 men are now. Their chemistry was truly timeless here. A true throwback to the territory days of wrestling. Johnny Gargano gets pinned fairly quickly, leading to him getting worked over for a majority of the match, with FTR cutting him off at every single opportunity. A Shatter Machine reversal by Gargano leads to a fiery comeback by the DIY boys, and tying it up at What a Piece. This foursome truly are honor roll students of classic wrestling philosophy. When the match turns to sudden death, each man pulls out every single bit of gas in their tank. A throwback that truly adds to its source material. The double tap out finish leading to DIY picking up the NXT Tag Team titles makes this a bit of a sad watch given what would happen to DIY later down the line. Number 6, Johnny Gargano vs. Aleister Black, TakeOver War Games 2. If you like Johnny Gargano as a face, ooh, his heel work is chef's kiss, mwah! The setup for this is pretty simple. All summer, Aleister Black is trying to figure out who attacked him in the parking lot of the Performance Center. Turns out it was a returning Johnny Gargano, the dickhead variant. We see Aleister Black in a new light here, being mentally tested by Johnny Gargano when normally the shoe's on the other foot, adding layers to his character so we could see the man behind the fog and candles. Honestly, I don't know why these two didn't wrestle more. This has a big CM Punk and Cena type energy. The highlights from this match have just played over and over again in my head, and the double black mass finish is truly biblical if you think about it. Oh yeah, and Johnny, buddy, stop flying into the spooky boy's knee! Number 5, Kevin Owens vs. Finn Balor, Beast in the East, 2015. When you first start watching a new wrestling promotion, that first feud you truly buy into will stick with you forever. For me, that is Kevin Owens vs. Finn Balor, making every single match they had just feel that much more important. Hailing from Tokyo's National Sumo Arena, the NXT boys were allowed to tear it up with the main roster on the same card. Somewhat of a homecoming for Balor given that he made his name forming Bullet Club in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And this is truly the closest you can get to a New Japan style match within WWE. The Demon looks like $1 million here, and Owens plays the perfect dickhead foreign heel. A hot start leading to a Finn Balor win, this was executed perfectly and was a great match to send Kevin Owens into the main roster sunset. Number 4, Johnny Gargano vs. Adam Cole 2 out of 3 Falls match, NXT TakeOver New York. Every company needs that certain something, a plucky underdog babyface to climb to the top of the mountain and win their first title. Enter Johnny TakeOver. With Old Goldie being vacated by his frenemy Tommaso Ciampa, it was time for Johnny Gargano to grab the brass ring and claim what was his. It most definitely wouldn't be easy facing Adam Cole in a 2 out of 3 Falls match and having to go through the Undisputed Era. And Adam Cole, baby, plays a great heel, but somehow looks like you want to introduce him to your mother and marry him in the same night. Following the 2 out of 3 Falls match stipulation greatness that we're used to seeing in NXT, these men move crispier than an 8-piece bucket from Popeyes. Each man showcases the depths of their offensive toolkit here. And if you are a skeptic on Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano, go back and watch this match and be prepared to be proven wrong. Number 3, Sasha Banks vs. Bayley Iron Man match, TakeOver Respect. Every now and again you come across a wrestling match that breaks barriers and changes the wrestling industry. I would find it arguable to say that women's wrestling would not be taken as seriously as it is today without these two women having this match. WWE doesn't usually book underdog babyface champions well, so this was the time for Bayley to show why she deserved to be NXT Women's Champion, and for Banks to showcase a heel clinic. Sasha wears her Eddie Guerrero influences on her sleeve, taking a count-out win and even making Izzy cry. Bayley is able to fight back after getting involved with things like the Videotron and ring steps. She is able to keep up with Banks in this match without stooping to her level. Bayley coming up 3-2 happens just as the timer runs out. Even outside of the greater historical significance of this match, Bayley and the now Mercedes Mone are trailblazers in their own right. NXT Respect is a fitting name for this show, because after this display, respect should be the first word that comes to your mind when it comes to women's wrestling. Number 2, Shinsuke Nakamura vs. Sami Zayn, NXT TakeOver Dallas. As one star enter, one must leave, or so used to be the creed of NXT 1.0. While Sami Zayn was the heart and soul of NXT, in his departure, we received a king. Shinsuke spent his entire career putting on classic match after classic match in New Japan Pro Wrestling, so it was no surprise that his first match would be no different. These two just go out there and have one of the best in-ring performances I've ever seen, making for a truly unforgettable match. The heartbreak over the high was truly painful to go through, but as they say, growth is uncomfortable. But on the other side of it, you'll find some pleasant surprises you didn't even know were there. The chant "Fight Forever" tends to be a little overplayed in my opinion, but with the magic that these two demonstrated in the ring, fight forever indeed. But first, a quick honorable mention to Mauro Ranallo. Ranallo is by far the most underrated commentator in WWE history. His mix of play-by-play and color commentary added another level to the in-ring performance that we often miss in WWE. Every time this man spoke, it would result in an electrifying earworm that made every takeover feel that much more important. And while he is not a wrestler, NXT would not be NXT without this man. And fuck JBL. And finally, our number 1 pick for the best NXT match of all time, Johnny Gargano vs. Tommaso Ciampa, unsanctioned match, NXT TakeOver New Orleans. Yeah, if you're a longtime NXT fan, you knew it was probably going to be this one. Zayn and Owens, Hogan and Macho Man, Gargano and Ciampa. Men, wrestlers, and now bitter rivals. Some pairs just have it. Tommaso Ciampa's breaking point allows us to explore the path of a man who chooses darkness and turns on not only his best friend, but his family. This blood feud demands your attention. That's why it went on last instead of the NXT title during this takeover. Not to also mention Johnny Wrestling's conflictedness here. How do you fight a man that you used to see as a brother and who has turned his back on you? How do you forgive that man for costing you your lifelong dream? All questions that aren't easy to find answers to. And while violence doesn't solve all problems, sometimes when it comes down to brass tacks, you just gotta beat a motherfucker's ass. Trauma, betrayal, anger. This isn't just simply wrestling, this is cinema. Ugly in the best way, from Ciampa's haunting silent entrance, to Johnny making his best friend tap using the knee brace that started this whole thing. And if I can steal a gimmick here, Mamma Mia, how could this not be number one? And that is our list for the top 10 NXT matches. What is your favorite NXT match? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next upload. This has been Extreme League Wrestling, and we'll catch you next time.